After Lesnar sent The Rock packing to Hollywood, a feud I covered in a previous upload, we now go on to talk about his reign as the WWE Undisputed Champion. On the August 29, 2002 edition of Smackdown, a small tournament is held to determine who will be Lesnar's first challenger. We begin with Eddie Guerrero versus Edge. It's an Eddie match, so of course it's worth checking out, and since it's Eddie, a little bit of cheating advances him in the tournament. He has to deal with Rikishi next. A hyper-aggressive Guerrero gives Rikishi a hard time, but it's not enough to win this encounter. After the match, Eddie's buddy helps assault the victor. Edge makes the save, but the damage is done. Impressed with Benoit's aggression, Stephanie enters him in the tournament. He makes quick work of Rikishi having already injured him. Amidst the tournament, the champion himself has action tonight against Matt Hardy. He's no match for Brock Lesnar. In the last match of this single elimination tournament, Benoit has to get past Kurt Angle. Stephanie has a little surprise for everyone though. She's acquired a Raw talent. It's none other than The Undertaker, and he's being entered into this match to make it a triple threat. Kurt and Chris jump The Undertaker, knowing full well the threat level of the big man. The legend brushes off the storm, and his foes are subjected to a reprisal. The Undertaker crotches himself on the top rope. Angle and Benoit continue to maul away like pit bulls. Taker is sent outside. Angle immediately goes after Benoit as these two can't stand each other. After a competition of suplexes, Taker returns and almost hits a last right on Benoit before Angle interferes. Angle grabs a chair, distracting the ref. Benoit nails The Undertaker with a chair of his own. Benoit goes for a pin, but Angle pulls him out of the ring. Angle tries to steal the pinfall, but Taker gets his shoulder up. Kurt goes over. Benoit goes for suplexes, but a chokeslam puts a stop to that. Angle sneaks in an ankle lock before The Undertaker can win. He counters, and Angle goes bye-bye. Benoit then catches Taker in a crippler crossface. The ending of this match is nuts. Really good stuff here. The Undertaker gets the win in the end. The man who has tangled with the best, Hulk Hogan, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, now has his sights set on the very young WWE champion, Brock Lesnar. Smackdown, September 5th. Brock Lesnar takes on Randy Orton. It's amazing watching them here, knowing the superstars they'll grow to be. Randy doesn't get much offense in before succumbing to an F5. The Undertaker is set to challenge Brock Lesnar at Unforgiven, so Stephanie conducts a sit-down interview. The Undertaker warns Brock that he will be beat up and tested. Paul says Brock will be doing the damage, and in the aftermath of said damage, Heyman promises the dead man's wife, Sarah, will be taken care of. He says he refuses to take care of The Undertaker's unborn child, though. This greatly angers The Undertaker. The interview comes to an end. For tonight's main event, we are gifted a tremendously fun match. Just pure action. Of course, Angle and Benoit cannot get along despite Eddie's efforts to get them to cooperate. Eddie finds himself abandoned in enemy territory. Well, if you can't beat him, join him. Undertaker's not having it as he closes tonight's events with a chokeslam. Smackdown, September 12th. Things are kicked off with a match between Brock Lesnar and Hardcore Holly. Holly is extremely aggressive here. Oh, by the way, this happens. That's a legitimate broken neck. What's surprising is that Holly continues to wrestle before he's put away with an F5. Matt Hardy stops by to congratulate The Undertaker's wife on her pregnancy. The dead man seems to be in a foul mood and pie faces Matt after he gets pushy. For that overreaction, a magnitude adjustment is in store for Taker. Well, he has Brock and Paul with him, so maybe. Paul's overboard with a distraction, so he's sent to the back. Matt sneaks a low blow and Brock nails a cheap shot. He's also kicked out of ringside. Taker abandons the match and speeds backstage when he sees Heyman harassing his wife on the Titantron. It's of course a setup. A chair shot lays Taker out. Brock palms Sarah's pregnant belly and tells her life's a bitch as Smackdown ends. Next week on the September 19th edition of Smackdown, Heyman learns from Stephanie that The Undertaker isn't present since Sarah went into false labor earlier in the day. Taker's apparently on his way to the arena now, and a terrified Heyman has a team of off-duty police officers on standby should The Undertaker try anything. Brock Lesnar has a match tonight, and Paul's concerned that his security won't escort them to the ring as they were hired only to keep watch backstage. Brock's opponent is none other than John Cena in what I believe is their very first encounter. The two have a very solid Young Lions encounter, but Heyman's terrified of the dead man's wrath. He's barely paying attention. Cena falls prey to the champ. Heyman urges Lesnar to hurry to the back. The two decide not to leave the arena, for they assume their adversary is waiting in the parking lot. He's actually just late, but he finally appears. "This isn't business, this is personal," The Undertaker says while calling Brock out. Lesnar actually answers the challenge. Paul Heyman is aghast at the champion's brazenness. Matt Hardy jumps Taker while Heyman practically drags Brock away. The dead man stalks his prey but can't touch him as he's been placed under protective custody.
"Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds."
It's time for the showdown, and for Brock and Heyman's sins, they are unforgiven. Brock may have the strength advantage, but the veteran refuses to back down. The champ exhibits a level of frustration with Taker not seen in his previous matches with the likes of Hogan and The Rock. Thanks to Heyman, Brock is able to gain control. The champ takes aim at The Undertaker's ribs. The veteran attempts a comeback, but Brock uses his belt as a weapon. This opens the challenger up as Lesnar goes to work on him. The dead man fires up and builds momentum. Taker nails a chokeslam, but due to a ref bump, it's for naught. Matt Hardy decides to interfere. He gets a last ride. Brock hits a spine buster for a near fall. Taker goes for a tombstone, but the ref is knocked out again. Heyman slides in a chair for Brock, but the veteran uses it on Lesnar not once, but twice. Now Lesnar's opened up and Taker goes to town. The fans become very vocal as it looks like Lesnar's time is over. Champion and challenger both brawl in the corner, disregarding the referee's authority until a disqualification is called for. The two tear away at each other until Brock is put through the unforgiven sign. This isn't over. The war has just begun. Hey look, it's Funaki! On the September 26th edition of Smackdown, the Smackdown #1 announcer is allowed an interview with Brock Lesnar. You see, this is why journalism is dead. Brock isn't the only one with frustrations to let loose, as The Undertaker has a match with Matt Hardy and makes quick work of him. Lesnar ambushes Taker afterward and reopens the wound from Unforgiven. Taker is left in bad shape. Smackdown, October 3rd. Paul Heyman warns Brock that Stephanie McMahon plans on giving The Undertaker a rematch at No Mercy. As for tonight, The Undertaker has a Falls Count Anywhere match against Matt Hardy. To say Matt is demolished may be an understatement. Another Brock Lesnar attack actually leads to a Hardy victory, though. Of his own dastardly volition, Lesnar uses a propane tank to smash the veteran's hand. A delusional Matt Hardy brags of defeating Taker with sheer matitude and says maybe he'll face Brock at the pay-per-view. As far as that goes, Stephanie says at No Mercy Brock will indeed still be going against The Undertaker, but it's going to be a Hell in a Cell match. Now it's confirmed that Lesnar broke The Undertaker's hand, but next week on the October 10th edition of SmackDown, The Undertaker insists on shutting a braggadocious Matt Hardy up. Using his cast as a weapon, Hardy is busted open. The Undertaker further injures himself, allowing Hardy an opportunity to flee. Backstage, a trainer tells Undertaker that he's re-injured his hand or possibly broke it in a different spot. Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar bring a mysterious young lady to the ring. Wanting to get his hands on the champion, The Undertaker shows up. The woman claims Mark, yes, she refers to him as Mark, has been romantically involved with her behind Sarah's back. Taker says he doesn't know her and gets slapped. Stephanie books Brock in a match, tagging with Tajiri against Edge and Rey Mysterio as to replace an absent Jamie Noble. Stephanie promises Taker won't interfere because if he does, Taker's No Mercy match will be scrapped. Before this contest, Brock actually phoned The Undertaker's wife to check on her well-being, so you know Taker's itching to do something about that. Anyway, after Tajiri accidentally kicks Lesnar, he falls to an Edge spear. After the match ends, Brock goes on a rampage. Since the match is officially done, Taker is free to attack without repercussions. Lesnar and Heyman retreat to end the show. SmackDown, October 17th. The Undertaker addresses the infidelity accusations from last week. He admits he lied. He did have something going on with that woman, but that was years ago. Taker says his personal life has been hell, and it's nothing compared to the hell he's going to drag Brock through. Stephanie McMahon calls that young woman Tracy a liar. She says she's no longer welcome on SmackDown. Heyman tries to convince Stephanie that The Undertaker should not be allowed to wear his cast in the Hell in a Cell match. The SmackDown general manager has a talk with Taker about that cast being used as a weapon. It doesn't go so well. Next up is Brock Lesnar versus Chuck Palumbo. This is actually a nice little match. Upon wrapping things up with an F5, the dead man appears. Brock is busted open with that cast and hightails it out of there. Backstage, while he's checked over, Brock orders Paul to make sure Taker is banned from wearing that cast at No Mercy. Paul screams at McMahon, demanding that Taker not be permitted to wear that cast. Stephanie comes to her decision. She says at No Mercy, the Undertaker will be allowed to wear his cast. Brock, unhappy with the decision, attempts to intimidate his boss. The Undertaker runs out, but Lesnar catches him with a spine buster and steps on his hand. Brock walks away to leave Heyman to poke at Lesnar's wounded challenger. Taker isn't taking that crap. He runs Brock off and gives Heyman what he's had coming. Hell in a Cell is the devil's playground for The Undertaker, and now that we're finally at No Mercy, the young WWE champion is about to find out why. Undertaker versus Brock Lesnar begins, and the champ continually avoids Taker's cast. He looks for some way out of this, some way to get to safety. Without anywhere to run, Brock targets Taker's weakness. That weakness, however, may possibly be Lesnar's kryptonite. Bloodied and bounced around, Lesnar at least has the wild card that is Paul Heyman. Paul uses his belt to trap the Undertaker's arm, allowing Brock to attack. He then tries to rip the cast off. After tearing it off, Lesnar dominates and continues to exploit the broken hand. Taker attempts to change course with a low blow followed by an elbow drop. A big boot sends Brock flying into steel, and Taker hits a dive. He hits the cell, barely grazing Brock. The champion uses the steel steps to open Taker up. The steel steps are used once more. The dead man looks to be running on empty, but he gets some payback when Brock's hand is stomped on. It's not enough, however, as Brock thwarts an attempt at old school. Brock goes for an F5. Taker struggles out of it and hits a chokeslam, to which Brock Lesnar kicks out. Lesnar looks to perform his own version of the last ride, but Taker avoids it. The legend goes for the real last ride. Brock counters with shoulders into the corner. Brock throws punches, to which Taker counters and does hit his last ride. But a rope break spares the champ. The challenger tries to finish Brock off with a tombstone, but instead the champ powers Taker into an F5. That's all she wrote. Brock is successful in beating the dead man at his own game. With Paul Heyman in his corner, the champion is unstoppable. His next challenge is literally his biggest yet. On the October 24th episode of SmackDown, after defeating Matt Hardy with a Rikishi driver, Big Quiche finds out about SmackDown's newest acquisition the hard way. The Big Show is here, and he says he's coming for Brock Lesnar. He arrives just after the challenge is issued, so he's unaware of what awaits him. Later on, The Undertaker comes out, calls Brock Lesnar out, and tells him man-to-man, a broken hand is no excuse. He admits Brock had his number. Brock implies it was Heyman behind the mind games, but he needed that edge to conquer the legend. Before leaving, the champion nods to Taker, showing respect. The Undertaker teases that he's going to walk off into the sunset. The Big Show interrupts him and says he's a has-been. Taker says he'll take being a has-been as opposed to a giant who never was. The Big Show assaults The Undertaker and throws him off the SmackDown stage. He's nearly stretchered out, but he refuses to succumb to the indignity. He is assisted to the back, though. The Big Show goes into Brock Lesnar's dressing room. Although Heyman tries to talk the monster down, the champ shoves Heyman aside and says he will face him. We move on to a Halloween edition of SmackDown on October 31st. Brock may be preparing to face his biggest opponent, but tonight he'll face his smallest. As Stephanie announces, tonight's main event is Brock Lesnar versus Rey Mysterio. Elsewhere, Heyman sits down with Brock and explains that Lesnar won't be able to suplex or F5 the Big Show. Therefore, he can't beat him. Heyman knows Brock doesn't want to hear it, but Paul says that's why people like him make decisions for people like Lesnar. Now for the main event. This isn't what you'd expect. Rey does very well before Brock gets his hands on him. Even after that, Rey looks like he just might win this with a 619. This is a no contest when the Big Show gets involved and puts a beating on Brock. SmackDown ends with Big Show standing tall. SmackDown, November 7th. The Big Show's looking for Brock, but Matt says he's going to soften the giant up, so he will be easier for Lesnar to beat at Survivor Series, where he'll be defending his title. Big Show easily deals with a tenacious Matt Hardy. Eddie Guerrero taunts Paul Heyman, saying, just like Brock can't beat the Big Show, Brock won't be able to beat him in tonight's main event. Lesnar loses it and chases the Guerreros off. Paul tells Brock off. He says Brock owes his success to him, and tonight Lesnar can fight without him in his corner. If you're wondering why Heyman would scold Lesnar, it's because he's been hot-headed and not listening. Anyway, it's time for the main event. Brock deals vicious offense, but Guerrero's cheating ways leads to him being problematic as Lesnar learns the importance of having Heyman out there. Brock battles through and succeeds with an F5. The Big Show appears and does to the champion what he did to The Undertaker as SmackDown ends. SmackDown, November 14th. Heyman claims Lesnar has a broken rib and has been coughing up blood all week. By doctor's orders, he is not to be present tonight. The Big Show says despite all of that, he hopes to see Brock later. Lesnar does show up. Paul gives him an earful for putting himself in danger. Paul then pleads with the Big Show to not mess with the champ until Sunday at Survivor Series. Heyman returns to Brock, bragging that he stuck his neck out to protect his client. Brock disregards what Heyman has to say. He says if the Big Show isn't calling him out, then he'll go to the ring and call the Big Show out. Heyman forbids the face-off. The champ tells his manager to shut it. Show answers the call, and Brock unleashes the full extent of his anger. Lesnar's challenger is left in bad shape as the show ends. Survivor Series, November 17th, 2002. The monstrous challenger throws Lesnar around like nothing and focuses on his ribs. Lesnar proves he can indeed suplex the Big Show. There's a ref bump. The champ continues to go to work. Heyman slides a chair into the ring. The chair is used to barely face the Big Show, but it's enough for Lesnar to hit an F5. A new referee runs out to count the pin, but Paul Heyman pulls the ref out of the ring and punches him. Lesnar becomes cognizant of what just transpired. The champion wants nothing more than to get his hands on Paul for this, but the Big Show capitalizes on the distraction to actually become the first man to pin Brock Lesnar. SmackDown has a new WWE champion. Brock's reign is finished. And so ends this story. But as for why Paul betrayed Brock on the November 21st episode of SmackDown, he explains he was the mastermind behind Brock this whole time. When Lesnar started misbehaving and defying the true genius, Heyman knew it was time to put the monster down and move on to something bigger and better. This was successfully executed in first getting Lesnar over as a dominant heel, taking everyone's heroes out, and then transitioning into a badass babyface people could get behind in going after a new batch of heels and becoming SmackDown's new top guy.